Thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, coming to you from the cozy comforts of our palatial homes. I'm Max's next-door neighbor, Brian Hoyle, and your host for the evening. They're here, your busy backyard bartenders, the masters of the takeout menu, the homeschooling, home distancing, Max Trujillo and Matthew Weiss.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And we want to chat with you today as we have another pre-COVID episode that we wanted to release and chat a little bit about what's going on currently before we get into this episode.
Yeah, so today is April 15th, tax day, psych, kind of tax day. And you're listening to it on April 16th when this gets released. I say psych because certain tax deadlines were postponed a little bit. I know, like, if you have an LLC and you're doing your annual report, the deadline got pushed back to June 15th. So there are certain things that are taking a little bit of breath. And that's what I actually wanted to mention, Matt, since we're just listening to this now. And even though we recorded with Steve Palmer on February 17th, I think the stimulus checks came in, at least I know they did in my old Trujillo household. So, yay. That's pretty good, I guess.
That's some really good news.
Yeah, it's going to help some people that need it. I mean, you know, some money is better than none. I hope everyone else has been able to figure out a game plan that's going to work best for them with this money, and at least think that maybe you should have a game plan, because it's not like they're going to keep sending these out. So it's a good thing to maybe stock up on the things you need and put some money back into the economy. I think that's part of it too. There's, of course, the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, which is an SBA loan that helps businesses keep their workforce employed during the coronavirus or COVID-19. That's only, again, these are limited things. People should be super aware that, as well as much as this is a forgiven loan, as it's at least worked, if it's done properly, it is limited. So we need to make sure that we are looking forward to the future and thinking about things that are positive and going to help progress our economy going forward, no matter how long this lasts. That's why I wanted to mention, like, some people that are like doing pretty cool things and some positive things for the community in the food and beverage industry.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom out there. And as a matter of fact, as you know, Max, Indigo Road, who Steve Palmer, today's guest, is the head of, they have decided for each gift card that a consumer purchases, they are donating 100% of those proceeds to their own employee relief fund. So all of their employees get the benefit of those gift card money in order to keep them afloat during this time where they're not earning any revenue.
So if you want to help out and help the cause, you can always purchase a gift card at indigoroad.com/gift cards. Of course, those restaurants out here in Raleigh where we're at is like Oku Sushi and the Oak Steakhouse.
Charlotte as well. If you're listening to this in Charlotte, they have those two restaurants, so you can pick up a gift card there as well.
Oh, right. But they have restaurants, in fact, 24 restaurants in total, as we found out when we spoke with Steve, all over the South, from Virginia down to Georgia, into Tennessee, and of course, North and South Carolina. So that's a cool thing. And I think that people are kind of working on some measures to help fix the model that is right now. And we put out a post to everybody on social media to say, like, hey, what's happening that's positive in this world right now with your business? And have you done anything to pivot what you normally do? And have you seen any success with it? And we had tens of thousands of responses.
It was unbelievable.
No, sadly, we only had a few of people that reached out to what they're doing, because maybe they're too busy to respond, and that's a good thing. So I'd like to think of it that way. But I do know that Josiah of Bold Bagels, which is out here in the Triangle, he wrote back and said that we switched our business model up just to pick up points around the Triangle, since most markets right now are closed, and they doubled their sales from their busiest week last year this week, which is pretty amazing. So as much as they were doing then, they're doing more now. They did a smart thing. Their pickup points they had were in North Durham, Morrisville, Wendell, and Holly Springs. Matt, maybe you should go swing over and get some bagels.
Yeah.
They're like,
and it's after Passover, so bagels will be kosher again.
That's right. I didn't even know they weren't. So there you go. Learn something new every day.
Yeah. No, it's a testament to people like that who are able to be innovative and mobile and flexible and still somehow find a way to make their business run. And that's not to say that, oh, you should do that, because some people just can't, but it's great to hear when people can.
Yeah, and we'll get into it, not on this episode, but hopefully soon. We're going to talk with other people that are figuring it out and figuring out some success, because we need to know what that means. Maybe we're going to do this for 8 more weeks. Maybe it's 18 more weeks. Maybe it's 8 months. We have no idea. So at some point, we got to start kind of figuring things out on our own. And that's the one message that I want to bring out more than anything, is people start figuring out some solutions to the situations that we currently have, and not just rely on stimulus checks and welfare and PPP programs. But whereas those are good right now, we should be concerned about how to make this economy work for the future.
Right. Well, that leads me into thinking about today's episode. And I'm pretty excited about this one, because talking about a guy that's found solutions, not only in his life, but for his business, Steve Palmer is definitely that guy.
Yeah. No, he was super intelligent, well-spoken. The guy has seen the life, and he's worked alongside some of the most notable people in the food and beverage industry. So this will be awesome. Oh, one last thing before we get into the show. We're trying to help out as much as we can with everybody, and we put a post up recently. But we have brand new hats from the NCFMB podcast, and we got the hats in amidst all this quarantining. And so we're like, oh, well, what are we going to do with these hats? We wanted to give them to our guests and people, come on the show and just, friends. But we thought a good, healthy way to give back to the community is to donate the proceeds of the hats that we sell to the North Carolina Restaurant Workers Relief Fund. The hats are $30. We're donating all the money that's put to the North Carolina Restaurant Workers Relief Fund. You can buy a hat and know that it's going somewhere good. And the hats look slick, so why not? They're cool.
Hey, Max, how do I get a hat?
Well, you can go to our website, go to www.ncfbpodcast.com, and you can go click the shop link. And I think even if you just go to the website right now, it pops up with a way to purchase a hat. We have 8 different types of hats in stock right now, and then a new logo, the one that we typically use on our iTunes logo or just wherever you see our logo now, will be coming out very soon, probably within the next couple weeks. So a lot of cool stuff, a lot of good hats. Buy it for a friend, buy it for somebody that listens to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So I guess without further ado,
let's listen in.
Yeah. Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I'm your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today with us, we have not just a titan in the restaurant industry, but a behemoth in the restaurant industry. And I mean that when you look at his resume. He is the founding partner of Indigo Road Hospitality, Mr. Steve Palmer.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So you're on a remote location right now.
It's not that exotic. I'm in Atlanta, checking up on our restaurants here.
Well, that's a good starting off point right here. We were going to do this podcast in person, but as we all know, if you've got as many businesses as you might, it might take you around some places. Just off the top of my head, I think you have. Am I wrong in saying you have about 24, give or take?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
24 different restaurants.
Yeah. And well, let's just, our people, or most of our listeners know you for your North Carolina restaurants, maybe the Oak Steakhouse in the Dillon Hotel in downtown Raleigh. And then also there you have Oku Sushi.
Yeah. And then if you go to Charlotte, you also have both of those same brands. And then Indigo, am I saying it right?
You are saying it right. That's our modern Italian restaurant. Yes.
Awesome. But a lot of us are probably going to know you from Charleston. You and both Chef Jeremiah Bacon have collaborated out there. You opened the Macintosh. Of course, you have the Oak Steakhouse out there. Both of you have been widely praised for what you've done in the restaurant industry. You've done so much in this business. I mean, I don't want to sit here and just list all the things you've done, but through the conversation, we'll kind of get into it. But of course, I think like one of the most notable things is most recently you were a finalist for Restaurateur of the Year in the James Beard Foundation Awards, which is significant. That's a national award. Obviously, our representation over here of Ashley Christensen winning Outstanding Chef of the Year is a national award. This is the equivalent of it, but more from the front of the house, more over like on a restaurant scale. So kudos to you for even being in that conversation. That is quite an esteemed award to be even nominated for.
Well, thank you. Yes, it is. And certainly honored and humbled for that recognition. I mean, that's the ultimate recognition in our business. So very honored to be on that list.
Yeah. And it's not only for your restaurant work, but for a lot of other things that we'll get into in terms of looking at the restaurant business in a different way. You're kind of a maverick, a pioneer in how you manage all your employees. But before we even get there, just talk a little bit about what made you want to come into North Carolina. I mean, you weren't too far. You were in Charleston, and you're looking up at us, but looking down at us, and in a figurative point of view, just because we're what they call an emerging market, maybe even a third-tier market. So, what was the conversation and the impetus to coming to North Carolina?
You know, I always say this, and I mean it sincerely. Our growth is the story of our people. You know, within the Oak concept, as you mentioned, we have Jeremiah Bacon. He's a partner in our business. On the Oku Sushi side, Kimball Brienza was our best GM at Oku in Charleston. So we made him a partner in the future restaurants. And so it really becomes, you know, our industry has this sort of historic low ceiling for compensation, right? If you're working in one restaurant, there's only so much you're going to be able to make. And so I find a lot of pleasure and a lot of satisfaction out of creating more opportunities for our employees, both financially as well as intellectually and creatively. So Charlotte is a market that I've spent a lot of time in. It was a natural choice. And then Scott Crawford in Raleigh is one of my best friends. So, you know, certainly Crawford and Sons and now Jolie. So Scott is really the reason. Ashley, of course, is a friend. And in just getting to know that market, I really felt like, you know, if there's a hole, then if there's a hole in the market for a concept that we have, then I get excited about it. But also the director of operations in Raleigh is somebody that was with us in Columbia. He's been with the company 7 years. So it was an opportunity for Zach to move to Raleigh and oversee multiple restaurants and make more money. And, you know, so It really is, I creatively like the challenge, but it's also about really fundamentally creating opportunities for our great people.
You know, that reminds me of, we had Randy Garuti on about a year and a half ago. He's the CEO of Shake Shack, and he gave a very similar answer to that in terms of what cities and places that they decide to open. And it really had to do with employee-based location. If somebody was moving to a certain city, or he knew he had a great, you know, start in the workforce there, that would be a great impetus to start. So it's a good company to be in.
Yeah, Randy's a great guy, and it really is true. I mean, I say this all the time. I don't think that I'm the smartest restaurateur around. I don't think that I'm a marketing genius. I think what we do well is people, and if you don't know that people are what make a restaurant work as an owner operator, then you're missing you're missing it. Period. But yeah, it's the story of our people.
What I feel like that's been a market change, especially since I was working in restaurants, that it's really become more about the people, because I always felt, and that's one of the things that, to be honest, I hated about working in the restaurant business. Like, especially me working the floor as a sommelier, I felt like I was generating all these sales and revenue for the restaurant, but never seeing much of it in my own pocket. I mean, I saw some of it, and selfishly, I thought like, well, they don't care about me because it'll just be the next person that'll be able to do that. But in the last 5 to 10 years, there's definitely been a decided change. What do you think are what started that, and how did that come about?
Well, I think Randy's old boss, Danny Meyer, was probably the first one who really put this idea of like putting the customer first. And I've had the benefit and the fortune of becoming friends with Danny, and he's been a good mentor to me. I also think that we're in this sort of, I don't know if you'd call it the golden age, but look at the last 10 years. how many restaurants have opened, right? Mm-hmm. Now we have words like foodie. There's shows like Top Chef. The social media has, and so I think that as there are more and more options for employees, I think the good thing for if you're out there looking for a job is it forces the employer to be better, because what's your motivation to work in a place where you're not valued, you're not treated well, and no longer is the sort of, hey, I'm doing, back in 10, 15 years ago, if it were a highly acclaimed, awarded restaurant, often you would get sort of the attitude of the chef and GM, well, you're lucky to be here. Yeah. This looks good. This is going to look good on your resume.
And that's why I don't have to pay you very much.
Yeah, like we're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
And I think that listen, look at the South. Like now Raleigh has an awesome food scene. Nashville does. Like it's no longer one or two cities that have a very vibrant food scene. I mean, Durham has great restaurants. Yeah. There's great food now everywhere. And I think that, I don't know. I think it challenges us. I don't like the word force. It challenges us to be better employers.
Yeah, I'll just share one personal story just to get along, not to get on my sad sack, but just to give people an insight of what I'm talking about. I'll leave the restaurants out, but anybody who knows my career knows about it. But I was running for a wine program for a prominent restaurant. I was kind of asked to get other restaurants that were opening off the ground, and I had started this list and created a whole program from scratch. And when the opening night for that, or friends and family for that restaurant came about, the director of the restaurant said to me, "Oh, so, are you going to be here tonight?" And blah, blah, blah. I said, "Well, no, I can't, because I have to be on the floor of the other, of the restaurant that I'm actually getting paid for, or else I won't get paid." And instead of saying something to the effect of like, "Oh, we'll take care of you," or "Don't worry about that, we'll we'll find another way to compensate," he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, see ya." That was it. Like no consciousness of like, oh, you've given up your basically for no compensation all your time to create another restaurant for us and create all this revenue.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, see ya. So
it's an interesting industry. Like, so Steve, you wrote a book called Say Grace, and at least even in the beginning, you said, I'm not a writer. I wrote one book. I have no other stories to tell other than this one. The subtitle is How the Restaurant Business Saved My Life. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and anywhere else you want to get books, Say Grace. But that book starts talking, obviously there's a very large aspect about sobriety and what led you to there, but we can get into that in a quick moment. But I think even just in general, the idea of being in the food and beverage industry is not for everyone, although everyone in the business always says everyone should at least work in the business for 1 year so they get it. But it takes a special person to want to effectively take this abuse or this understanding of what this business is. And we've all been in this industry. I wonder, just not to get too like psychoanalysis on you, but your history shows that you were a foster kid. You kind of had a tumultuous childhood. How was that being, just growing up? How did that push you into getting into the food and beverage industry?
Well, I think so. I always say that I'm a people pleaser by nature, right? And that is both good and bad. Many people in the recovery community would tell you that they were a people pleaser. So there's inherent dangers, but I think that fundamentally I like serving other people. I derive joy out of watching other people experience joy. And where else does that happen than every night in a restaurant? I talk in the book a little bit about, so the restaurant business kind of saved my life twice. One, obviously the more obvious, I was friends did an intervention and put me in rehab. So that's the obvious, but it was the first place for me that I ever felt completely accepted, completely cared for. And I say this all the time, the restaurant business is the great equal playing field. Doesn't matter where you went to college or if you went to college, doesn't matter how you grew up. Yep. If you show up and you're willing to work hard and be a part of a team, then the restaurant business will accept you. And so that's kind of, from my perspective, the first time it saved my life, because I always kind of joke every time I drive by a construction site, I think, thank God I found the restaurant business, because I don't know what else I would have done. But, the restaurant business is diverse in its very nature, and that we kind of accept everybody. And so I think in that way, I don't necessarily think that, I get asked this question all the time. The restaurant business didn't make me an alcoholic or an addict. I had all of those predispositions way before I ever found a restaurant. Culturally, does the restaurant business have a history of accepting that kind of bad behavior? Yes, it does. Happily, that's all changing now, and we're having conversations about mental health. But I've always said the restaurant business we're kind of the island of misfit toys, right? We're where all the broken people go to be loved. The squirt gun that shoots jelly and Charlie in the box instead of Jack in the box.
Right. It kind of throws an interesting curveball to the whole situation when you have like these, like you said, these misfits that to be loved, and then it's celebrated on a national level.
That's right.
It's funny. The last few episodes that we've done, we've been talking about sobriety. We've been talking about where people are with their addictions inside the restaurant industry. We recently had John Seelbinder on. I believe you know John.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then we had Chef Sonny Gerhardt of St. Rock. And, of course, the aforementioned Scott Crawford, who is killing it out here with all of his restaurants and really leading the charge with on the culinary side, all becoming sober. And, I think it's about access, right? I think like living that lifestyle is about access. And if you look at like a similar access, people that have guns in their houses that have like licenses, like police officers or security or whatever, that statistically they actually have a higher rate of suicide than those that don't have access to a weapon. And it's a weird thing. You look at it, you're like, well, but I do have a gun and I'm really, really depressed right now. And like, whatever, it's like, it's just there. So in this parallel, it's like, I don't have a gun, but I'm really depressed and I have this bottle of Jack Daniels in front of me, or I've got access to wine at all times, I mean, hell, there used to be like, the old joke was never trust a skinny chef, right? Because it was like the chef had access to food. You wanted your chef to be this fat guy that ate all the time. And like, but that was part of the unhealthy lifestyle as well. But that, we started to understand the health benefits of being in shape and working out and body and mind and all that stuff. And who knows if maybe drugs attributed to chefs not eating as much as well, like because they didn't want to be
right.
Right. But all that stuff, so it's access is what I'm getting at. It's access. We're just, you were a wine director for so long. Matt and I both have been wine directors. We would be at our desk. We might have 9 or 10 open bottles of wine that people had given to us for any various reason. You're tasting, you're doing whatever. And now it's just looking at you. So it's very tempting at all times to just enjoy, especially when it's not, no offense to Jack Daniels, but when it's not Jack Daniels, but when it's actually like a second growth Bordeaux or a really beautiful single vineyard Pinot Noir. You're like, well, yeah, I want to try that. And now I want to try it again. And now I want to now I'm drunk. And that's what happens. So, I mean, I get it. It's a difficult challenge. But those that kind of understand where they are in that part of their lives, and look to see beyond it, can still be fairly successful. And as I mentioned, all those gentlemen and yourself have kind of found a new path in this industry.
Well, it's funny. People always ask like, wow, 24 restaurants, how do you do what you do? And I'm like, well, I'm sober and I get up around 6 a.m. When you sober up alcoholics, we're highly functioning people, right? And so I always sort of, in our industry now, as more and more people are getting sober, you hear the chef say, my food tastes better. I'm more present. I'm more conscious. I knew I had a problem. Look, I mean, there's all the bargaining that goes on. I'll only drink wine. I won't do shots. I'll only drink on the weekends. I won't, call the Coke dealer, whatever the bargain is. Because alcoholism is funny, right? It's the only disease that tells you don't have a disease. And what I mean by that is like cancer patients are not walking around saying, I don't have cancer, but alcoholics are walking around going, I'm fine. I'm everything's fine. And I knew I had a problem. What I couldn't figure out was how this was 2001. Nobody was sober in the restaurant business in 2001. Like it was you had a better chance of seeing a unicorn. And so that was my conflict. I was dying on the inside, but I loved hospitality. So I was in this like, how am I going to make this work? I was an advanced level somm. I'm studying for my master. I had a 1,200 bottle wine cellar at my house. And I'm like, how in the hell is this going to work? And it really, my aha moment was sort of forced on me, where I came to work one day and the owner of the restaurant says, Peninsula Grill in Charleston. I was the GM. And they said, look, you have a choice. You can clean out your office or you can go to rehab. But you're going to decide right now.
Wow.
Wow.
And look, the chef that I worked with, that I've been doing Coke with 3 days prior, was sitting in the office. So you can imagine, like, you're just like, are you guys kidding me?
The hypocrisy.
Yeah. But
like, is he coming to rehab too?
Yeah, I know. Like, or is there a twofer going on?
Yeah.
But the owner knew better, and he was like, no, you're going to decide right now. And I think back to that day, like, if I hadn't made that choice, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I'd be dead. And there wouldn't be this company. And I'm very open with our employees. Like, this company is built on a foundation of sobriety. Like, I'm not the guy that meets investors and can raise money. I'm like, none of this exists. So and thankfully we're now in this great space in the last 5 years, really, where we are talking about mental health, where sobriety is being embraced, where there's non-alcoholic drinks on a cocktail list. There's this whole paradigm shift going on. And look, I think ultimately long-term, we're going to have better employees because of it. And whether you're sober or not, I think we have more sober environments. The shift drink, the age old, all of those doing shots on the line. I mean, all of that stuff is starting to go away because people are realizing it's not sustainable. And I'm not like, I don't think alcohol is bad. I sell alcohol every night. It was bad for me. But that lifestyle and promoting that as sort of normal behavior, I'm so grateful that as an industry, we're going like, hey, we need to learn how to take care of ourselves because this isn't going to work. And so, that's,
you also need to make a profit, right? I mean,
yeah. There is, and there's no other industry where, like, I mean, you go to an office in a corporate environment, you don't have a bottle of whiskey under the desk. I mean, like, in a nutshell, we're becoming a more professional industry. And isn't that a great thing?
Let's take a pause real quick just to speak about one of our sponsors, because we got to pay our bills here on the show. I'm talking about the Folks Foundation. They are the champions of all good things crafted in North Carolina and the folks that make them. They have a Folks Journal, which comes out quarterly. It's a publication both online and in print, and you can access it going to folksfoundation.org. Sign up to be a member of the Folks Foundation. As a member, you are directly supporting makers, growers, crafters, and artisans of North Carolina, benefiting the champion handcrafted culture of the state. Directly affects our lives every single day, from local products that we eat and put in our bodies to the music and podcasts we listen to on our daily commute. Membership packages vary, but include a subscription to the Folks Journal, discounts to their upcoming general store, and access to exclusive content. So you can visit them at folksfoundation.org. Back to our show.
So I'm wondering, Steve, with you say the restaurant business is getting a little bit more professional in a way, and we're in this new age of sobriety. Will the pendulum swing back at some point to the middle? Because I'd hate to think of like, I'm looking for moderation, I guess. So will then it swing back where we have this awareness now, where young up-and-comers in the hospitality know the history of, okay, there was crazy wild partying 80s, 90s, early 2000s, then it took a turn, and there was this other end of the spectrum of you have to be sober, and then with that knowledge you say, okay, well, we can enjoy wine and alcohol and a cocktail, but in moderation.
Sure. And I think what's really great is so many people, I mean, my wife, she drinks. In AA, we call her a normal person. She has 2 glasses of wine and then goes to bed. And I'm always like, that's so weird. But, she is somebody that absolutely enjoys things in moderation. And yet she supports me and obviously supports the movement. What I love about our industry right now, and I say this all the time, is I feel this level of support from everybody, not just, like, I think we're already at a place of moderation. I think, I was in a Ben's Friends meeting in Kansas City yesterday. We launched, and there was somebody there who was sober curious. That's a term you hear, so we're finding that we're interacting with people who aren't necessarily saying, look, I have to completely go dry, but I need to make better choices and I need to find other outlets. And what are the other ways that I can burn off steam at 11 o'clock at night, except other than Oblivion?
Yeah.
One of our chefs, the chair of Ben's Friends, Austin, he started a run club. Mm-hmm. So now there's 50 people that go running every week together, and they're all, I think we're already there, but yes, I think you're going to continue to see that. And I think it's only going to produce better wine directors, better chefs. I think our industry is just going to get better because of it.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's also, on your night off, well, what do restaurant people do on your night off or hospitality? You go and you drink somewhere. You go meet a friend for a drink and you have dinner and you have, what else can you do? Can you go play golf? Can you go bowling without having a beer or maybe just like you say, 2 beers? But, and the other thing that makes me think of is, you have this whole spin on mental health. And I'm just wondering, there was a thing where you also pioneered a program for your employees, over 900 employees, I think, throughout the 24 restaurants to have free mental health care. How many of them actually take you up on that?
I don't know because I don't ask.
Okay.
It's there.
But you must see a bill, no? Or it's just
No. It hits my American Express every month. So I absolutely see it, but I don't know who's going. Look, therapy should be something that's cool, not something that's stigmatized. Like I have a therapist on speed dial, right? When I was dating my wife, I would have freak out moments where I would almost blow up the relationship because I wasn't used to something normal. And I'd call my therapist. I think that if I wished for anything in life, it would be that this idea that like asking for help is a sign of weakness or that I would love for that to go away. And sometimes people just need a third party to give them an objective point of view. It doesn't mean you're crazy if you're going to a therapist. You're just going through stuff. And so that was an easy thing for us to do. We've rolled out other programs around home ownership and education. But that was so easy. Like, why wouldn't I want to pay for people to go talk to somebody if they need to?
That's amazing.
Right? I mean,
I love that because it's also, if you think about it, therapy, you get to go talk about yourself for 45 minutes to an hour, but against an unbiased person who's actually trained and professional to listen to you. So why wouldn't you want to do that?
I mean, that's kind of why we do podcasts, right? We're like literally just talking about our thoughts and feelings. But I mean, if you spend time working out and you go to a gym, well, that's physically taking care of your body. So why wouldn't you do the same thing for your brain? And
that's right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good to talk about your thoughts. I've had many different therapists over my life and for various reasons, but some of the best ones are the ones where I'm not really bumming or I'm actually feeling good about myself. And you go in and you speak to a therapist and you acknowledge the good parts of your life.
Yeah.
And that I feel like is like a wellness visit is so important and sometimes even more helpful for the fruit of your life than the times where you just you just got in a huge argument or a fight or whatever and now you have to go to the therapist. It's like just go and feel good and when you are feeling good and the therapist can help you actualize why you feel this way, maybe that's the key to your own personal happiness. You start to enjoy why you enjoy your own life, which is a good thing.
Absolutely. Listen, I talked to my therapist about work, about strategy, about, he's almost a life coach too. I mean, it's not just to go dump negative shit. So, I want that for everybody. And at the end of the day, when you, as a business owner, it really doesn't cost us much at all.
Yeah. You know what else doesn't cost you anything at all, at least for the first 60 days? If you own a restaurant and we're looking for mobile and online ordering, give eHungry a try. That's ehungry.com. They work with thousands of restaurants and charge ridiculously low fees, like 1.9% on every order. So let your customers order online for carryout, delivery, catering, and more. And right now, if you sign up with the NCFB podcast code, you will get 60 days free as a trial period by visiting ehungry.com/NCFB. So if you're a business owner, use ehungry.com, save some money, and produce some revenue. Anyhow, Steve, you mentioned a couple things that I want to get into, because when you were talking about your wife and you just kind of quickly said, oh yeah, in AA we call them the normies or the normals. But then you also mentioned Ben's friends as well. Now, most of the world understands what AA is, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so it sounds like you have a history there, but you also mentioned Ben's friends. And I'd like to know, because you, as at least the way it's stated in your bio, you co-founded Ben's Friends, a food and beverage industry support group offering hope, fellowship, and a path towards forward to industry professionals struggling with substance abuse and addiction. Yes, I'm reading that. So let us know a little insight right there. Did you start at AA and then you felt a need to go beyond? How did that all work?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I am a member of the 12-step community. You know, when I got out of rehab in 2001, that was what you did. And it saved my life, and I will forever be grateful. A lot of the messaging, and this isn't just my experience, this is a shared experience. A lot of the messaging in early sobriety, if you're a restaurant employee, is you got to get out of the business. And we hear that. I heard that yesterday in Kansas City. Like, you got to get out. And it's not, there's no malice intended. It's like, because of the environment that we've already talked about, you know, when somebody is at the beginning of trying to pull their life together supersedes everything else.
Right.
My first 5 years of sobriety were fairly lonely. I mean, I didn't know anybody who was sober in the business. My days off, you're sort of like, what do I do now? And I'm not in any way did I feel sorry for myself, but it was just like, okay, so most of my friends, it's their day off and they're out drinking, and I can be around alcohol and it doesn't bother me, but there's a point of intoxication where I no longer have anything in common with everybody I'm hanging out with. Right.
Yeah.
And so flash forward to 4 years ago, in the back of my mind, as I've been on my sober walk, I've always felt like I wanted to give back. I wanted to do something that would reflect my love for the industry and all that the industry has given me, and have sat back and watched as friend after friend after friend has died from the disease of addiction, and they never got to experience the joy that I've gotten to experience. And so I had a friend named Ben Murray. He was a chef with us. Ben was helping us open a restaurant in Florence, South Carolina. We had put him up in a hotel, and Scott Crawford was there helping me. He was between Standard Foods and opening Crawford and Son. He was there. There were two other sober chefs in the kitchen. Ben went to his hotel room and shot himself and committed suicide. Oh. And while he was opening this restaurant, and the really heartbreaking, I mean, there's many heartbreaking things about that. We didn't even know he was struggling. The word depressed and Ben, I mean, like, he was like Dean Martin from the Rat Pack. He always had a joke, was the funniest guy in the room, filled with energy and light. I never even saw him take a drink. And, you know, as I called his 80-year-old mother to have that conversation, you know, it came out that Ben had been in and out of detox 6 different times. And I was so struck that, like, that night, Scott was in the kitchen, 2 other people were in the kitchen that would have done anything to help Ben if he would have just said, "Hey man, can I talk to you after work? Yeah. Like, I keep trying to get sober. I can't seem to get it. You seem to have gotten it." You know, like nothing. None of it knew. And And so I went to Mickey Baxt, who's a fellow sober person in Charleston, and I said, we have got to do something to change the culture around addiction in our business, whether it's just the macho culture of not asking for help, whatever it is, because help was available to Ben. And I got to believe that, you know, killing himself was not the most popular thing in his mind that day. And so we started Ben's Friends, and it was a weekly support group in Charleston that it's not affiliated with anything else, because the second A in the AA is anonymous. We felt like we're trying to change a decades-old culture. We don't want to be anonymous. We want to be on podcasts like this one. We want to be in the news. Like, we want to shout it loud. Hey, there is a solution here.
Yeah.
And about 6 months after that, and so Scott immediately started Ben's Friends in Raleigh. And we just kind of thought, okay, we started a couple chapters, and that will be that. About 6 months after that, Anthony Bourdain killed himself. And like literally overnight, the New York Times started calling the Wall Street Journal, the LA Times, hey, what is this Ben's Friends thing? And we started getting articles written. And then a chef in Portland, Oregon read the article and went, well, I'm sober and I want to start a chapter. So in 3 years, we're in 14 cities. We just launched Kansas City yesterday, which is why I flew in to Atlanta last night. There were 30 people at the first meeting. We've got 7 more cities, so we'll be in 20 cities by June. We've literally got more cities wanting to open than Mickey and I have time to get to them. And now there are hundreds of people every week coming to this support group. And, you know, we're very upfront. 1 hour a week is not going to fix you. You didn't drink 1 hour a week, so 1 hour a week, but it's a start. And often we're able to help people get into other forms of recovery. And so, I mean, it has become, I love my day job. I love my restaurants, but it has become my life's most important work for sure.
Awesome.
How is it different, other than obviously not being anonymous with AA? I asked this question because I've known a lot of people that go, dude, AA is not for me, man. I just I'm not a Jesus freak, bro, or I don't want this. And like, there's certain things. Speak to that. Like, why is it different than that?
Sure. So we hear that a lot in Ben's Friends, the God thing in the 12-step community. And there, you know, there is no God in our group meetings. I'm not getting into the religious aspects of what I just said, but
Steve Palmer, you heard it here first.
No. Listen, I gratefully I don't have some of the hang-ups that some folks do around that subject, but so we don't talk about God. I'll tell you where Ben's Friends is at its best. You guys know there already exists this camaraderie in a restaurant, right? There's already we're the subculture of the culture. So think about if you've got a problem and you need help and you're walking into a room full of busboys, bartenders, line cooks, and chefs. Think about how strong that sense of community is. It's like take the sense of community you feel in a restaurant and multiply it by 100. And that's what it feels like to sit in a Ben's Friends meeting. The connectivity, and I don't take any credit. Like when we just let's just have a meeting, but we're seeing it nationwide now that there's this bond. It's like the subculture within the culture. And I think that's where Ben's Friends really makes an impact is people feel safe walking into that meeting versus walking into a 12-step meeting where maybe they're not the same age. Maybe they don't understand the restaurant business. Maybe they don't, you know, or somebody goes in and hears religion right off the bat. So I think that's where we're finding it's just an open format where we talk about the struggles of what it feels like at 8:00 on a Saturday night when the tickets are hitting the floor and the adrenaline is rushing. And when everybody's leaving to go do a shot and have a drink after work, what it feels like to be the one that isn't going to do that. And we all know our business is unique, right?
Yeah.
trying to get sober in our business is pretty unique. And as I previously said, very well-intending people outside of our industry will often say, well, you need to get out of the industry. Well, what happens if you love the industry? What if you don't want to get out of the industry?
Yeah.
And that's where Ben's Friends really, I think, is resonating with people, because it's pretty intense and intense being a good thing. We flew to Kansas City Saturday night. We had a meeting yesterday, and there were 30 people there for the first meeting. And so we're on to something.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see, to be honest.
Is there a leader in each meeting that is like employed by Ben's Friends or trained, or what's the structure of it?
So we're not. It's volunteers. You have to be sober at least 2 years, and you have to work in the restaurant business.
Okay.
And you have to have
to be a leader. Yeah.
So without getting too deep in the weeds, you have to have a program of recovery. It can't just be, I've been white knuckling it for a couple of years. You have to I've been to therapy. I've been to 12 steps. You've got to have something to share with that person that's walking in with 1 day sober going, oh my God, I'm on fire and I need help. What do I do?
Right. Yeah. And just to add to that thing about getting out of the industry, I can't imagine one thing. You've already taken this giant leap to say, okay, I'm going to try sobriety, or I'm going to try to stop drinking. And then at the same time, you got to find a new profession or career. Like what?
Right.
Talk about beat you over the head with a bat.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part of it too, is that it's not the industry. It's individuals. It's just that we have access to alcohol and drugs. So we have to break the wheel, like Khaleesi would say in Game of Thrones, right? But we really do. We got to break the wheel of understanding, because, if you're a Scott Crawford, a Steve Palmer, somebody that went to school, learned, educated themselves, and really honed their craft at knowing all this, and then someone just said, oh, but to live successfully and healthy, you can't do that craft any longer. It's like, well, no. Matt and I, we spent the better half of our entire adult lives knowing and understanding the nuances of wine and distilling and service and all these things. So to just take the skill set away from us because the industry is fucked up is not really a solution. It's like, how about we just fix the industry? And it sounds like this is a step towards healing this industry, because it's funny, but I always like to jump forward about 10, 15 years as to how trajectories are going, and now any type of trajectory, because of social media and communication and how quick things move. Now it's not even like a 10-year plan; it's like a 3 or 4 year plan about how things change. But I wonder now that restaurants are sexy to the industry, or not to the industry, but just to the community in general, that maybe this will cease to be a place for the land of the what did you say earlier? The
misfits.
The misfits. And now we're actually going to have college kids with degrees in hospitality, and we're going to have you're going to get high level people that really appreciate this industry for what it is. It's a good and a bad thing, right? Because the food and beverage industry has been a refuge for those that needed a safe haven, and you could make money pretty quick and a good amount of it fast. But there will be a change,
I think that's already happened a lot with. I see it like my younger cousin, the same thing. Went to Cornell Hospitality School, super smart kid, and then decidedly works at 11 Madison Park, and he won a Top Chef as a kid. So and a lot of people like that, I think, will do that. But then all the other misfits will just become influencers on social media and make millions. So it's all good.
Yeah. Listen, anything that makes our industry better, I'm for. I'm 35 years into this. I was homeless at one point in my life. The restaurant business has given me everything, and anything that makes our industry better, I want to support as much as I can, because we all know how short-staffed we are. We need more people working in the industry.
We do,
not less.
Yeah, well, and so, and with that, I guess, this is like a public service announcement to those that are out there that aren't in the business. Know what when you go out to restaurants and know what this industry is like, the pressure, the timing, the perfection, the extended hours, what everybody is doing, and the fact that with all these things compounded, it makes someone's life a little bit challenging. So just, be respectful of those that are your servers, your bartenders, your busboys, your waiters, your hosts, your managers, your chefs,
your butchers,
be respectful because it's no longer like, it's a service industry, but it doesn't have to be considered a servant's industry. You
Right.
are a person that does this job for a profession, and it's a good, well-paying job. So, respect needs to go all the way around. So just, hey, you go out to a great restaurant, respect those that are around you while you're there, and don't worry about the whole tipping thing. You should be tipping anyways. I don't need to tell people to tip. You know that already. But and that's a whole industry in itself. We talked to Danny Meyer before, talking about Danny Meyer. Maybe that will change the industry too, the whole tipping concept too. But I don't want to get out of here without at least going back to your restaurants, Indigo Road Hospitality, with all of these great restaurants. I mean, you're in DC, you're in Atlanta, you're in Nashville, you're in, of course, Charleston, and now here in Charlotte and Raleigh. I've
soon
never
to be
been,
opening in Cary.
It's soon to be opening in Cary as well. Yeah, you're opening places everywhere. To the listeners, seriously, don't sleep on these restaurants. You're doing it the right way with a real honest way of employing your having a great sense of employees and respecting them, but also you guys throw down. Like Oku Sushi is amazing. The Oak Steakhouse came here for our happy hour. This is not a happy hour event. When our studio is here, the kitchen opened up last year. Jeremiah Bacon came along with the Oak Steakhouse, and made a ton of food for us and our friends when we did this. We're doing it again this month, first week of March. Little shameless promotion, but we're doing that again. So check out social media and all, and come and visit us at the kitchen. But when they came in, it blew everyone away. They're like, "Wait a minute, we're eating." We're having filet mignon at the kitchen right now. It's like, yeah, no big deal. Who cares? They just brought it. No big deal. But seriously, you guys do a great job. You're really great into the community. I'm always conscious and nervous about the big companies, quote unquote, the big companies coming into a small town like Raleigh. Like, are you guys going to respect the landscape and do what it is? And I can say from watching what you all do that there is a ton of respect for understanding it's people first, and you're just doing it. Like, we need more businesses like yours. So it's great that you have 24 and soon to be 25 and maybe 26 soon after that. So keep going with what you're doing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, we listen. I always say this, and I mean this like from the bottom of my heart. Raleigh doesn't need the Indigo Road. The Indigo Road needs Raleigh. So when we come into a new market, like the first thing we need to go eat at everybody's restaurant just to pay respect. B, we need to get involved with the community get our roots in deep. And C, just because we opened a restaurant somewhere else doesn't mean it's going to work here. So we never take it for granted that we killed it over here, so we're going to kill it there. We just don't operate that way. And listen, here's what I always say: like Todd Woods, our chef at Oak, Boy, our chef at Oku, they live locally in Raleigh. So for them, the Indigo Road in Raleigh is their Indigo Road experience. So all the more important for those guys to be a part of the community. And when we're doing it right and when we're hiring the right guys, I don't even have to say that to them. They're like, absolutely, I want to get to know all the chefs in town. And so thank you for that. And it is very conscious on our part to try and get any community we go to try and be a part of that community, because I think restaurants at their best, and I know you guys would agree, have the power to change a community through charitable outreach. We've all seen the restaurant that opened on the edgy, maybe sketchy part of town that suddenly the neighborhood gets better because there's a restaurant. So food has the power to change things, right? And I just love being a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and we didn't get into it today, but for those of you that want to hear more about, you speak very eloquently about the irony of the industry, about how, I'll just give a small example about how the restaurants can be one of the most charitable organizations or industries around in terms of raising money for all these wonderful charities. And then the backlash of it is at the same time where there's all this altruistic activity, there's people struggling with addiction and depression and killing themselves, or, driving home intoxicated, etc. So I'll leave that for the TED Talk that you did. For anybody that's interested, go look at Steve Palmer's TED Talk. It's a really amazing piece and talks even more about your life. But I do also want to just ask, if somebody is sober curious, where do they go to find out, or if they wanted to get involved with Ben's Friends, how would they do that?
Sure. So bensfriendshope.com. All the meetings are listed there in every city, when, where. There's emails you can reach out. We respond within 24 hours to any email. We've got volunteers monitoring our emails. So, bensfriendshope.com.
Awesome.
That's awesome. We'll put a link not only to bensfriendshope.com, but also to your book, Say Grace, How the Restaurant Business Saved My Life. Check that out. I think if you are interested in Ben's Friends, this probably would be a good book to read, and it's from our perspective of being in this industry. So thank you for doing that. Before we get out of here, we do have two more sponsors that we want to mention. Yeah. And
I'll just say, for the first one, if you're like Steve's wife and you can have 2 glasses of wine, or you just want to get a half bottle, you can go to the Triangle Wine Company like the rest of the normies.
Yeah, all those normies that can be moderate about their intake. Go to trianglewineco.com. Of course, they have 4 locations: Holly Springs, Southern Pines, Cary, Morrisville, and soon to be new locations in the future. But go to trianglewineco.com, use the NCFB promo code, and save on a discount. And while you're there, you can also receive Proof Alcohol ice cream. That was created out in Steve's original state down there in South Carolina by our friend Jennifer, and they were genius in a way to infuse alcohol into ice cream, because let's face it, we weren't gluttonous already. We could. Doing it separately wasn't enough. We had to put it all together. No, we love that she did that, because it's truly remarkable. It's a delicious way to finish your dessert. Think differently about desserts. Go to proofalcoholicecream.com. Steve, I would send you one of these, but I think it's in poor taste to send that.
All good, my man, all good. But thank you for the thought.
Yeah, I'll push it forward. Today is Joey Carty's birthday. He's in the studio. I'm going to give him your ice cream and force him to eat all of it today. Kidding.
Very cool.
But anyhow, thanks a lot. Check our show notes for all the links, both to our sponsors, but to the book, to Ben's Friends. We really appreciate you spending time with us, Steve. Matt,
yes.
What else you got here?
Steve, hopefully we'll see you at the JBF Awards this year, the 30th anniversary. And other than that, go to Oku Sushi and Oak Steakhouse. You will eat and drink very merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NCF&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.